Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Natural Super Kids podcast. It's great to be back. We've had a few weeks off, which we rarely do, but I just needed to listen to my body. We had a very busy promotional period. We had a lot going on behind the scenes of the business, and I had a bit of personal stuff going on. I had to have some skin cancers removed. They were just BCCs, but all of that kind of, just amounted to me feeling pretty flat and unmotivated, if I'm honest. The weather here in South Australia, it was pretty awful last week as well. And so I just had to let a few things go, including the podcast. But we are back and I am feeling refreshed and ready to go. I think it's a good example of, the fact that we do really need to listen to our bodies, and rest is so important. I feel like as a naturopath, I'm pretty good at looking after myself. Nutritionally, I move every day. I do spend a lot of time in front of my computer, the joys of having an online business. But there are just times when you need to take that, extra sort of downtime. And I also will say that perimenopause is really knocking with me as well. I thought I'd take it easy for a few weeks, take the pressure off, and it has really paid off because I'm feeling passionate and raring to go again. So I hope you're all doing really well. We are in the thick of winter here. It is freezing cold, but this week's been quite nice sunny days so far. I don't mind the cold when the sun's out. I lived in Canada for a year in my 20s, and I also lived in the UK for a couple of years. And even though it was colder in Canada, much, much colder, it was often quite bright and sunny, and also, beautiful natural environment. I was living in the mountains, and I much preferred that, even though I'm not a big fan of the cold. I much prefer that cold, crisp but sunny weather than the dreary grey weather. That sort of really does play with my mood and energy like it does for so many of us. Anyway, we are heading into a series all about eczema, and I was really inspired to talk more about eczema because I just had this sort of variety of feedback from people. So I got an email from one of our customers who had purchased our eczema workshop, and I'll read a little bit of it to you. She said, I just want to reach out and say thank you. I've enjoyed listening to your podcasts, and I purchased the eczema workshop a little while ago. I've researched health topics a ton in the last few years, listened to so many books and podcasts. So I had a good base of holistic wellness already, but I'd been struggling to get my little guy's eczema cleared up. And a lot of books and podcasts about health are not super specific to kids. Your workshop and online info has helped clear up our little guy's skin. And she sent some pictures, and the difference, the difference in her little guy's skin, or their little guy's skin, was amazing. She said, we already eat a pretty wholesome, nutrient-dense diet. We try to spend time outside. We limit toxin exposure from chemicals and plastics, etc. He's breastfed, vaginally birthed. But I took on some of the recommendations from your eczema workshop, and that has helped so much. Thank you. I sent some before and after pics of our precious little guy and his beautiful skin. So I was so thrilled to receive that email. And then I also recently asked in our Natural Super Kids Club group for feedback. I asked people what they have noticed, improvements they've noticed in terms of their kids' health since joining the club. And so much of the feedback we got was related to eczema. One of our members said, my son's eczema is no longer require topical steroids to control my son's eczema. Another member said both of my girls suffered from severe eczema and it no longer bothers them due to the changes in diet and the help of supplements recommended in the Natural Super Kids Club. Another member said, I've been in this club for more than 3 years and I've been basically able to cure my son's eczema. What a difference it has made. And there are a lot more pieces of feedback like this from our members. I won't sit here and read them all, but you get the gist. And it's so, because we run a membership and we offer online, workshops like our eczema workshop, which we do offer as a standalone. I will make sure the link is in the comments for anyone who wants to have a look at that. Or you can go to naturalsuperkids.com/eczema and it will take you to the page with all the details of our eczema workshop. We don't often hear feedback. We don't always hear feedback from people that have done the workshop or that are in the Natural Super Kids Club in terms of the improvements that they have experience. So it's always so lovely to hear that. And it really stood out to me, that we've got something here. We've got some, and I always knew that, but just this standout kind of like a progress and improvements in eczema made me want to talk about it a little bit more on the podcast. So we've put together this 3-part podcast series where I'm going to, walk you through some of the important things you need to know about eczema. And we are starting with this episode. I want to help to explain that eczema is not just skin deep and the 3 underlying causes or factors that you need to know about when it comes to your child's eczema. Most parents think that eczema is a skin issue, and of course it is. It affects the skin. But I like to think of eczema as a signal, any sort of skin complaint, whether it's eczema or rashes or, skin infections or acne. It's a sign to us, a signal that something deeper is going on. And with all skin issues, eczema being the most common one that we see here at Natural Super Kids, we always want to look internally. What is going on internally to cause this inflammation, this dryness, this sensitivity, of the skin. So today in this episode, we're going to start by talking about those 3 underlying drivers that are almost always involved in eczema. So the first one is immune dysregulation. So what you need to know about eczema is it is an inflammatory immune response the majority of the time. It's not just a rash. So again, we're looking deeper, we're looking internally. When there's inflammation of the skin, we need to be looking at where is that inflammation driven from, coming from. And a lot of that is due to immune dysregulation. So I like to think about the immune system as a seesaw. The immune system is not just that part of our system that protects us from virus, bacteria. We're in the thick of winter. If you're listening to this in real time, we often think of immunity as the thing that helps our kids recover from sickness or not get sick so often. And that's one branch of the immune system. But there's another branch of the immune system that regulates what we react to and what we're sensitive to. And in eczema, the immune system is overreacting. It's oversensitive. That could be due to, it could be overreacting or sensitive to foods, or it could be more environmental factors as well. And the reason this is so much more common in children, and a lot of children will outgrow eczema, is because the immune system is still developing. It's still finding its way. It's still figuring out what is safe and what is not safe. And in kids with eczema, their immune system is often, oversensitive. It's overreacting. So other signs that your child has a sensitive or overreactive immune system are, of course, food allergies, environmental allergies, hay fever, asthma, and even tummy symptoms like digestive symptoms can often be present, and we don't necessarily know for sure that it's a food reaction, but it can be as well. So digestive symptoms are often involved in immune dysregulation as well. And I'm going to talk a bit more about digestive health and gut health in a second. So immune regulation is a big part to play when it comes to eczema, and it's often where a lot of that inflammation of the skin that's causing the redness, the itching, the dryness, the flaking that we commonly see in eczema, is coming from this immune system dysregulation. And if we can bring the immune system back into a more regulated position, then that can really help. And there's so many things that, we can offer naturopathically when it comes to immune regulation. And we talk much more about exactly what to do about that and how to support that immune regulation in kids in our eczema workshop. So definitely check that out if you want to know more and you want to really, dig deeper and investigate what could be going on and what could be or what your child could be reacting to. And it's not just sort of removing the thing that your child is reacting to. It could be multiple things. Sometimes it can be complex. It can be foods and it can be environmental substances. So it's not just about removing those offending things from your child's food or like diet or their environment. It's about bringing that immune system back into balance and regulating that immune system, which is often a missing piece when we are talking about that medical approach to allergies or eczema. We're looking at, your child is reacting to dairy, let's say. Let's take that out of the diet and that's it. Whereas that is not the complete picture. And in a further episode, I think part 3 of this series, we're going to talk about common triggers when it comes to eczema. But for now, I want you to know that there is often this immune dysregulation going on when it comes to kids with eczema. The second thing is gut imbalances. Now, you've probably, if you've been listening to me for any sort of length of time, you may have heard me talk about the gut health. You may have even heard me talk about that gut skin connection. So the gut and skin are closely connected. And whenever we see skin issues, challenges, whether it be eczema, whether it be acne, whether it be recurrent skin infections like molluscum is so common in kids, we are often looking, we're always looking at the gut and what we can do to improve gut health and gut balance so that we can improve skin health and skin balance. So the gut and the skin are closely connected. We call it the gut-skin axis. You might have heard me talk about the gut-brain axis before, or the gut-brain connection. So the gut is really linked to almost every system of the body. So this gut-skin axis is really important to consider when it comes to eczema. And when it comes to the gut, we want to specifically be looking at the gut microbiome, so the ecosystem that lives within the gut. There's bacteria, there's fungi, there's all sorts of organisms that are in there. And what is really important with eczema, and the research, sort of backs this up, is that diversity of the gut microbiome is crucial. So when there is a low diversity, like not many different species of healthy bacteria within the gut, we know that eczema is more common in kids that have low diversity. When we have a high diversity in the gut microbiome, which benefits kids and adults in so many different ways, we can start to improve eczema. So gut microbiome diversity, super important. There's also often things like leaky gut and food sensitivities that are often at play when it comes to eczema as well. So as I sort of said before, that like when I was talking about immune dysregulation, when it comes to gut imbalances, we're looking for things like tummy aches, constipation, fussy eating, recurrent infections. Eczema is a, red flag for gut imbalances as well. So we want to be improving that microbiome diversity as a whole. And one of the best ways we can do that is to include a diverse range, a variety of different plant foods in the diet. So different fruits, different vegetables, different grains, spices, herbs, legumes can be really good for overall gut microbiome diversity. Now, this gets a bit more complicated when kids might be sensitive to certain foods in the diet. So we do need to be careful there. If we're starting to increase plant foods and plant variety in our kids' diets and their eczema is getting worse, then that's sort of a red flag that there's potentially sensitivities to some of those natural chemicals that occur in plant food. So look, I know this is challenging and it gets tricky, and you're doing one thing to try and improve things, and then things are getting worse, but these can all lead to that end solution for one particular child, because every child is so different. One child might have histamine intolerance issues that are causing their eczema, and another child might be more sensitive to dust mites, for example. And so what we are doing to improve that diversity of the gut microbiome, if it's making things worse, then that can lead to clues as well. And this is why working with a practitioner can be really helpful. And again, we go into a lot more detail about this in our eczema workshop. And then just a note here that there are certain strains of probiotics that are particularly beneficial for eczema. So using an eczema-specific probiotic can be a really good start. It's usually not the whole picture, and it's not going to be the one thing that completely heals your child's eczema, but eczema-specific probiotics can be really helpful for that gut microbiome piece. Just a little word here, when I was talking about histamine just then, histamine intolerance is a really common factor when it comes to eczema. And so a lot of families will start to try and do the right thing. They will be increasing things like fermented foods and sauerkrauts in their kids' diets, and their eczema is getting worse. That is definitely a red flag that histamine could potentially be an issue. So I just wanted to kind of pop that in there as well. So we've talked about immune dysregulation, we've talked about gut imbalances and microbiome diversity. The third thing I want to sort of talk about at this sort of higher level is skin barrier integrity. So kids with eczema often have impaired skin barrier function. So if we think about the skin as being, it really is the thing that separates our internal body from the external world. And the barrier of that skin, the integrity of that barrier is super important. And so kids with eczema often have impaired skin barrier, and that makes them more reactive to environmental substances or creams or things that you might be putting on, things in the bath, chlorine in the pool, and even just things within the environment. And it also makes them more prone to moisture loss, to infections. And so it can get, quite messy when eczema is flared up. So we want to support the skin barrier, the integrity of the skin barrier. And again, we've got so many things that can help naturopathically, things like essential fatty acids, the right topical support. So although I don't I'm not a believer that creams and things are the answer to eczema. The right topical support and creams and baths and things can make a difference. And nutrients like vitamin A and zinc, and as I said, essential fatty acids are really important for that skin integrity. So that's something we're always looking at within that holistic picture of improving eczema in kids. So as I said, I wanted to break this up into 3 parts because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to eczema. But just to summarize, the 3 underlying factors, underlying causes of eczema that we are nearly always working on when we're looking at treating eczema naturopathically, improving eczema, are the immune dysregulation, the gut microbiome health, and the skin barrier integrity. And these 3 areas, they're interconnected. Working on one supports the other. For example, when we're improving gut microbiome balance, we're also improving immune regulation. And we're also improving that, that gut skin axis, which has a positive role on that skin barrier integrity. We talked about gut microbiome health. The skin has its own microbiome. So that skin integrity is super important when it comes to, or the skin microbiome is really important when it comes to skin integrity as well. So you can see that there's, quite a bit at play when it comes to eczema. So really, to summarize, we don't want to just treat the skin with creams like steroid creams. And I'm going to talk next week, in next week's episode, I'm going to talk more deeply about steroid creams and why they're not the long-term solution for eczema. I'm not saying never use them, but there are all sorts of issues associated with using steroid creams long-term. So we do want to, be careful and use them minimally, only if and when really needed. So we really want to be, treating eczema internally and addressing these 3 areas as opposed to just slapping on a cream. So as I said, next week we're going to talk about why steroid creams don't solve the problem. I'd love for you to join me then. And if you want to know more about our eczema workshop, you can head on over to naturalsuperkids.com/eczema and you can find out all of the details about our eczema workshop there. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week.